Assalamu alaikum students. First of all, we will review the previous lecture. As you know that the previous lecture was about attitude change. We talked about different procedures of attitude change. One of them was cognitive dissonance and the other was persuasion. As I discussed in the previous lecture that cognitive dissonance is in fact different from persuasion. In cognitive dissonance, usually there is inconsistency between attitude and behavior of the person, and because of the internal discomfort, the person changes his attitude or behavior. While the other factor which is also very important in attitude is persuasion. As I said before, that persuasion is different from cognitive dissonance. As cognitive dissonance arises because of the internal discomfort, persuasion is a direct external message that is given with conscious attempt to change somebody's behavior through some persuasive message. As far as cognitive dissonance is concerned, there are three things important in cognitive dissonance. If the person thinks that his attitude was justified and then behavior is not consistent with that attitude, then the person tries to remove that dissonance by having a consistency between attitude and behavior. And the second thing was how much the person has invested in that attitude. If the issue is very important for the person, then it is very difficult to change the behavior. For example, if some person is very much affiliated with some political party and then after a few years he discovered that the party is involved in some corruption, then it is very difficult after so much investment to change his attitude, and the consequence is that there is not a consistency left between attitude and behavior. And the third thing is important in cognitive dissonance is freedom of choice. If the person is having a particular behavior according to his own choice, then it is very difficult to change his behavior, whatever happens. And in the previous lecture, we discussed about that doomsday cult group, because they had participated in that cult group with their own choice, so it was very difficult when the prophecy of their leader was not proved right, then it was very difficult that they should leave their previous attitude. So this was something about cognitive dissonance, which is, as I mentioned before, due to some internal discomfort. And as a consequence, sometimes people's behavior is changed and they sometimes change their attitude to have a consistency with their behavior. The second factor which is also very important in attitude change is persuasion. As I said before, that persuasion is through some external message which is a conscious attempt to change the person's attitude. There are a number of factors important while you are conveying a persuasive message to someone. One factor is that who is communicating, who is the person who is doing that propaganda, who is doing that persuasion, who is that person, so who is the communicator. So we can also call it a source variable. The second factor which was also very important was who is communicating the message and what is the message. So the content of message is very important. And the third variable is audience variable. In the previous lecture, we talked about source variables, that who is communicating. As far as source variable is concerned, there are two things important. One is credibility of the source and the other thing is attractiveness of the source. As far as credibility of the source is concerned, psychologists do agree that if you want to persuade someone, then one thing, your message should be delivered. And if it is to be delivered, then it should be delivered in a credible way. So how do we determine credibility of the source? There are two things important. One is expertise and the other is trustworthiness. When we say expertise, we usually refer to the person who is involved in this persuasive message. And it really depends on the type of message that you are conveying to people, that what will determine expertise. For example, if the problem is some medical issue, you want to convey to people that cigarette smoking is not good for health, and you want to convey to people that what they should do if they want to avoid different diseases, for example AIDS, then you need to have a doctor who shall be conveying this message. अगर उसकी बजाय जो है वो कोई layman जो है वो ये message देता है, obviously the credibility is reduced and it would definitely have less effect on the public. अगर इसके अलावा आपने जैसे पिछली दफ़ा हमने मिसालें देखी थी कि अगर आप कोई psychological issue है and it is related with personal well-being, human emotions and human behavior, then it will be more feasible and it will be recommended that a psychological point of view from an eminent psychologist is presented to people. Then we also discussed trustworthiness of the source. Trustworthiness of the source will be determined if the person does not have his vested interest in that particular persuasive message. उसके बरक्स अगर वो शख्स का अपना मफाद है उसमें मैसेज कन्वे करने में, तो obviously the trustworthiness becomes suspicious. And then we talked about sleeper effect. Sleeper effect से मुराद ये है कि जो ऐसी सोर्स हो which is non credible, उसका इफेक्ट क्या होता है. बज़ाहिर तो हमने यही डिस्कस किया था कि जो सोर्स नॉन क्रेडिबल होती है उसका असर नहीं होता, as compared to that credible source has a long lasting effect. But studies have shown that if there is some time gap between attitude and behavior, then it is possible that credibility source would lose its importance. किस तरह से कि अगर टाइम गुजर जाता है तो people usually forget about who was the source and what do they remember is message. Message याद रह जाता है और source जो है वो भूल जाती है. So in these circumstances it is recommended that if measuring attitude of people, before measuring attitude of people, what people can do that they could remind people about the credibility of the source. Sometime it is not feasible क्योंकि ये practical नहीं होता कि आप बार बार remind करवाएं, and then it depends कि आप फिर उसकी repetition करते हैं message की and people are reminded about the credibility of the source. उस तरीके से फिर sleeper effect को दूर करने में आप कामयाब हो जाते हैं. Then secondly we talked about attractiveness of the source. अगर source जो है वो attractive है तो उसका जो message है वो सही तरह पहुंचेगा और people will be more likely to change their attitude. And the question is, what is attractiveness? Attractiveness is determined, for example, by people's different points of views. कुछ लोग attractiveness को कहते हैं कि physical appearance and physical attractiveness mean that the person is attractive, and some people say that those people are attractive who have similarity to your attitudes and values. और बाज़ लोग ये कहते हैं कि if they have a similar background then they will be more attractive. So it depends कि आप जो हैं वो attractiveness किसको समझते हैं, but usually attractiveness means physical appearance. And as far as physical appearance is concerned, several studies have shown that people who are physically attractive, their messages are more likely to change people's attitude. और physical appearance जो है उसमें there are two things important. One thing is that physical appearance will affect the audience in a direct manner, that it will take a central route. The other is peripheral route. Peripheral route में ये होता है कि the attractiveness is not directly manipulated, but it would have some effect by classical conditioning procedure. जैसे पिछली दफ़ा मैंने मिसाल दी थी, usually male viewers are attracted by the presentation of attractive females, or sometimes they appear in these kind of advertisements which have nothing to do perhaps specially with female sex. For example, in the advertisement about automobiles, about some new brand of a car. और होता क्या है कि the attractiveness जो है of the female becomes associated with automobile, and then the person is having positive attitude toward automobile. So that is a peripheral route, it is not a central route. And in some advertisements some central route is adopted, that female sex is directly shown telling you that this cream is very good for their इम्प्रूवमेंट इन देयर स्किन, तो ये एक डायरेक्ट राउट है जो अडॉप्ट किया जाता है एडवर्टिजमेंट में और परसुएशन में. देन वी टॉक्ड अबाउट लाइकेबिलिटी. ओवरऑल एक शख्स की जो पर्सनैलिटी है उसका क्या इम्पैक्ट पड़ता है आप पर. एंड यूजुअली इट हैज़ बीन शोन दैट पीपल who are likable, who are nice, friendly, agreeable, they would have a good impact on changing of people's attitude. And then lastly, we talked about similarity. And similarity could be determined by 3 factors. The person could be similar to you by having same values and attitudes. The person would have similar background, as I said before, and the person would have the same kind of appearance as you are having. आपने एडवर्टिजमेंट्स में देखा होगा कि इश्तिहार के मुताबिक जो है वो सोर्स डिटर्मिन की जाती है. फॉर एग्जांपल, इफ़ द एडवर्टिजमेंट इज़ अबाउट सम वॉशिंग लिक्विड, तो यूजुअली हाउसवाइफ्स और इस तरह का इमेज दिखाया जाता है कि वुमेन आर वर्किंग इन देयर होम बिकॉज द टारगेट इज़ एंड द ऑडियंस इज़ दोज वुमेन हु आर स्टेइंग एट होम एंड दे आर टेकिंग केयर ऑफ होम. तो इस तरह से ये बहुत ज़रूरी है कि दे शुड अपीयर वेरी सिमिलर टू यू, क्योंकि मैसेज जो है वो जिसको कन्वे करना होता है सिमिलरिटी उसी के साथ डिटर्मिन की जाती है. सो दिस वाज अबाउट द प्रीवियस लेक्चर, और यहीं से हम जो है वो आज का लेक्चर शुरू करते हैं. टुडे वी विल बी टॉकिंग अबाउट हाउ द मैसेज शुड बी कन्वेड. मैसेज कैसे कन्वे करना चाहिए. सो व्हाट इज इम्पॉर्टेंट इन द कंटेंट ऑफ द मैसेज. एंड थर्डली विल टॉक अबाउट द ऑडियंस वेरिएबल. हु आर द ऑडियंस. आप किसको परसू करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, किसका एटीट्यूड चेंज करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. एज फार एज second variable, that is message variable, is concerned, there are many things important in the content of the message. These are the things which are related to the content of the message as well as how the message is presented to the public. Some of these factors are presented here in this slide. First one is facts versus vivid images. Second is fear. Third is humor. Fourth is the use of one-sided versus two-sided arguments. And then the last one is repetition. So let's talk about all of them one by one. First is facts versus vividness images. तो मैसेज जो है वो कन्वे करने के 2 तरीके होते हैं. One is evidence based message, जिसमें you provide factual information to the public. For example, last year 1100 students died with drug abuse. If you want to change people's and especially youngsters and students' view about drug use, then you can use this kind of factual information. अब ये जो मैंने यहाँ पे figures present की हैं, they are not any factual data as such. ये सिर्फ एक मिसाल देने के लिए मैंने 1100 लिखा है. कहीं आप ये समझ लें कि ये एक factual data है, but factual data is presented in that way that facts and figures are described to attract people's attention. And the second way is vividness-based appeal. In vividness-based appeal, you do not tell about the facts and figures. Instead, you give some images which describe your message. For example, you could display that information in graphical form. और आप कोई picture बना के दे देते हैं. So it is very vivid. The picture is very vivid, लेकिन उसमें कोई factual information as such नहीं दी होती. जैसे कि अगर आप एक सिगरेट स्मोकिंग या ड्रग यूज़ के ख़िलाफ़ जो है वो इश्तिहार देना चाहते हैं एंड यू वांट टू चेंज पीपल्स एटीट्यूड अबाउट ड्रग्स एंड सिगरेट स्मोकिंग, तो फिर आप एक किसी शख्स की तस्वीर फॉर एग्जांपल बना देते हैं और वो डिसफिगर्ड सी तस्वीर है, यानी कि हेल्थ पर जो भी नेगेटिव कॉन्सिक्वेंसेज हुए वो शक्ल से या जिस्म से पता चल रहे हैं. और फॉर एग्जांपल आप इस तरह का स्लोगन साथ लिख देते हैं, नॉट एवरीवन डाइज विद ड्रग यूज़. And this is a kind of graphic message of disturbed consequences with the drug or smoking use. मुझे याद है हम लोगों ने एक यूनिवर्सिटी में सेमिनार करवाया था about cigarette smoking, and that was basically about the negative effects of cigarette smoking. तो उसमें स्टूडेंट्स ने डिफरेंट सेमिनार्स कंडक्ट करने के अलावा उन्होंने पोस्टर कंपटीशन भी किया, एंड स्टूडेंट्स मेड रियली इंटरेस्टिंग एंड वाइब्रेंट पोस्टर्स. और एक पोस्टर मुझे याद है जिसमें एक साइड पर सिगरेट्स लगी हुई थी और साथ ही खोपड़ी बनी हुई थी. सो दैट वाज अ विविड काइंड ऑफ डिस्क्रिप्शन जिसमें मैसेज ये दिया हुआ था कि योर हेल्थ विल बी सफरिंग सो मच कि आप जो है वो इससे डाई भी कर सकते हैं। इसके बरक्स कुछ लोगों ने फैक्ट बेस्ड इंफॉर्मेशन यूज़ की थी एंड देन दे हैड प्रेजेंटेड डेटा फ्रॉम वर्ल्ड वाइड दैट हाउ मेनी पीपल वुड डाई फ्रॉम lung cancer if they are smoking cigarette and how many people would have bad and ugly teeth if they are having too much smoking etc. तो दोनों तरह की information जो है वो दी जा सकती है. The question is which of them is more effective? Usually it has been seen that if you give evidence based information this is more persuasive than the vivid one. The reason is that people are directly influenced by the information that you have provided to them. So the studies have shown that evidence-based appeals are more persuasive as compared to the vivid descriptions. And some studies have also shown that persuasive power can be increased if evidence is combined with vivid imagery. And that study was done by Gonzalez et al. In 1988. तो ये ज़्यादा इफेक्टिव तो ये है कि आप कोई फैक्चुअल इन्फॉर्मेशन भी दे दें लेकिन साथ विविड डिस्क्रिप्शन भी दे दें. And the studies have also pointed out some problems with vivid images because sometimes the message is lost if it is not properly conveyed. क्योंकि लोग जो हैं वो बाज़-औक़ात वो इमेज की अट्रैक्शन इतनी होती है कि उसमें लॉस्ट होके रह जाते हैं and they forget about what the communicator wants to say. So Sherman et al. Had pointed out in 1990 that vivid images prime relevant information in memory. उसका ये फ़ायदा तो है कि वो आपको रेलिवेंट इन्फॉर्मेशन आपकी मेमोरी में काफ़ी क्लियरली डाल देंगे. जैसे कि अगर कोई खोपड़ी की तस्वीर है और साथ सिगरेट्स बनी हुई है तो मे बी मुझे उसको काफ़ी देर तक याद रखने में आसानी हो. लेकिन एट द सेम टाइम इट इज़ पॉसिबल that if the message is not conveyed properly through vivid images, then the person may forget the real message and just remember that particular image. One study was conducted by Frey and Egle in 1993 to compare the effects of vividness versus non-vividness. और उस स्टडी में उन्होंने क्या किया? They presented vivid or non-vivid messages to people, and there were actually two conditions. One condition was high attentional constraint, and the second was low attentional constraint. What do they mean when they say high attentional constraint and low attentional constraint? Actually, in high attentional constraint, they give specific instruction about the vivid and non-vivid images. यानी उनको कहा गया कि आपने इन images के फलां पहलू जो है उसको गौर से देखना है. So that instruction was given. As far as low attentional constraint was concerned, it was incidentally presented and no instruction was given. And the results showed that with high attentional condition, both vivid and non-vivid images were equally effective, while non-vivid messages were more persuasive when incidentally presented. इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि अगर आप instructions नहीं देते तो फिर कौन सी condition होती है? Low attentional condition. और low attentional constraint या condition में ये होता है कि अगर आप instruction नहीं देते तो it is not essential that people will get the proper message when they see vivid images. क्योंकि हो सकता है कि वो vivid image ही में खो के रह जाएं and they are just concerned with how that image is presented rather than looking at the message. And sometimes it is also possible that the real message is disguised. और हम ये तोक़ो करते हैं कि वो जो शख्स इसको देख रहा है वो खुद ब खुद उसका मतलब समझ जाए. But some people take cognitive challenges while others don't. So some people actually do not get the real message. उसकी बजाय वो कहते हैं कि ये समझ नहीं आया कि ये मैसेज क्या था. While as compared to that, if information is given in evidence-based way and the facts are presented, that everybody is going to notice them through central route. So the conclusion is that vivid elements interfere with the full comprehension of the persuasive message. And it has been pointed out by Smith and Schaeffer in 2000 that this cognitive wandering off is most likely when vivid elements are incongruent with the theme of message. इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि ये जो cognitive wandering off है यानी हमारा जो है वो जहन भटक जाता है, this is more prominent when vivid elements are non-congruent with the message. अगर उनका बहुत ज़्यादा direct link नहीं होगा मैसेज के साथ उस इमेज का तो this wandering effect will be greater. As compared to that, if it will be related, the theme will be related, तो फिर उसको याद रखना आसान होगा. अब क्वेश्चन ये है कि वो तो हर सूरत में रिलेटेड ही होगी, whatever will be the message, image जो है वो उससे related होना चाहिए. But what I want to say is that sometime it is disguised a bit. तो उस सूरत में जो है वो people have a difficulty to find the real meaning of that particular message. So that was about presentation of vivid and non-vivid images. The second thing is a question, does fear appeal persuasion? क्या ये भी होता है कि आप लोगों में खौफ पैदा कर दें और उस खौफ की वजह से है कि ये हो कि लोग अपना एटीट्यूड चेंज कर लें. Napoleon Bonaparte, who was a French general and emperor in 18th century, he said there are two levers for moving men, interest and fear. So one thing is that you have a need for that particular message. Why you are changing your behavior, it is determined by your motivation and your interest. And second thing is that you are afraid. और उस खौफ की वजह से जो है वो अपना original attitude आप change कर लेते हैं. अब it has been seen that the fear element has been employed by so many advertisements, by different organizations and by people who try to invoke fear in order to persuade. इसकी मिसालें लेते हैं. For example, if the advertisement is from some anti-smoking organization, तो आमतौर पर क्या होगा कि they will tell you that what are the drastic consequences of smoking cigarettes. So they induce fear in public. And similarly, it has been seen that if it is employed by some organizations, they also use it very effectively. जैसे कि अगर कोई इंश्योरेंस कंपनी है, वो चाहती है कि लोग उनकी इंश्योरेंस पॉलिसीज खरीदें, तो आपने शायद नोट किया हो इश्तिहारात में कि कई दफ़ा दिखाया जाता है द पर्सन इज सिटिंग वेरी एंशियसली, और इस तरह से बैठा हुआ है और वो सोच रहा है कि मेरी बेटी की शादी कैसे होगी, और बच्ची छोटी सी दिखा रहे हैं साथ खेलती हुई, और कहता है कि 10 साल के बाद मेरे पास कहाँ से पैसे आएंगे. सो इन दिस एडवर्टीजमेंट अगेन fear is induced and people are reminded about the responsibilities that they may not be able to fulfill otherwise if they do not buy insurance policy. और फिर कई दफ़ा दिखाया जाता है कि people will be thrown out of their homes if they do not have financial security, and financial security is possible through buying an insurance policy. As far as people are concerned, governments are concerned, this fear element is quite frequently employed. मुझे याद है एक मैंने साइकोलॉजी की कॉन्फ्रेंस थी इन लॉस एंजलिस जो अटेंड की, एंड दैट कॉन्फ्रेंस वाज conducted by American Psychological Society, and in that conference one American presented an excellent paper, और वो जो पेपर था वो that was appreciated by American people who were attending that particular conference. और पेपर क्या था कि he told that whenever there was a threat to Bush regime, so what happened, he will remind people of different threats of terrorism. जब भी उसको कोई खतरा लाहक होता था उसके इक़्तिदार को, तो वो कहता है कि आप फलां certain points देखें, जब जॉर्ज डब्ल्यू बुश के इक़्तिदार को कोई खतरा लाहक था तो वो लोगों को फौरन जो था वो टेररिज्म की थ्रेट जो देता था कि people are trying to have terrorism again and there will be more attack in USA. So he was reminding people of future terrorist attacks by reminding them of the previous 9/11 incident. And it has been shown in other researches also that political governments use this kind of strategy very often. Rogers et al. Called it protection motivation theory in 1997. Protection motivation theory states that fear induces motivation to protect the self. So when you are thinking that yourself is threatened, like George W. Bush would tell people that America is under attack. So he is the savior of nation at that moment. So he will induce fear in public to get his own motives. But it has also been seen that sometimes fear can also be very counterproductive. Counterproductive कैसे हो सकता है कि अगर आप बहुत ज़्यादा fear induce कर देते हैं in the audience, then sometimes people are unable to concentrate on the message that has been delivered. उसकी बजाय जो है वो खौफ इतना ज़्यादा हो जाता है कि they are unable to take that message in a clear way. So it should be taken into account that when people are using fear element, it should be in safe limits. There are certain conditions when fear appeals can be effective. What are these conditions? The first two conditions here presented in this slide are about attitude change, and the last two are about the personal capability of a person to deal with that particular threat. The first condition says that the target of the message is convinced that the dangers mentioned are serious. अब दोबारा मिसाल लेते हैं 9/11 इंसिडेंट की कि people were told that it is a very serious occasion or this needs prompt action. The second is that the target is convinced that the dangers are quite probable. So everyone was told that future terrorism attacks are expected on the USA. The last two, as I said, are about the personal capability of the person to deal with such problem or trauma. The third condition is that the target is convinced that the recommendations to avoid the danger will be effective. तो उसी मिसाल के तहत हम ये देखते हैं कि George W. Bush was telling people that America will be able to avoid the danger with having fights with other countries who were responsible, according to his opinion, for that terrorism. And the fourth condition is that the target believes that he or she can competently take the action. अगर हम ये चौथी कंडीशन को देखें तो आपको कुछ लगेगा कि it is related with another theory that we have studied in the previous lectures, and that is the theory of planned behavior. आपने देखा था कि consistency अगर हो attitude और behavior में, so it is important that what were the intentions of the person. And intentions of the person are determined by perceived control. If the person is having a control perception that he or she can control the situation and he has control on his attitude and emotions, then it would have a consistency with behavior. तो theory of planned action के तहत हम ये देख सकते हैं, theory of planned behavior के तहत भी इसकी तशरीह की जा सकती है. How we can explain this through the theory of planned behavior is that the person thinks that she or he is capable to take that action and he or she is having proper control of his behavior. Another element which is important in attitude change is humor effect. So the question is, does humor increase attention to a message? Studies have shown that about 40% of all advertisements employ humor, and one of the study was done by Unger in 1996. The thing is that most of the time when people are listening to very serious material, then it is very refreshing if some humorous element is added into that. I have seen personally in international and national psychology conferences that when serious papers are presented, तो बीच में कोई जो है वो speaker थोड़ी सी कोई मज़ाहिया बात कर देता है तो everyone starts laughing as if they were waiting for that element. So people are generally happy when they are given that message in a humorous way. And it has been used properly by public relation consultants also. Public relation consultants recommend punching up speeches with humorous anecdotes, and that was the finding of a study which was conducted by Weinberger and Campbell in 1991. So what are other factors which are important in making humor as a very important element in attitude change? Several studies have shown the importance of humor as a factor for persuasive messages. For example, Duncan and Nelson pointed out that people's attention can be increased by humorous message than serious sounding communication. Similarly, Gruner pointed out in 1985 that if you inject humor in your messages, then the person who is communicating his credibility and his likability is increased. Yani that person becomes more likable who is injecting humor in his persuasive messages. But an important aspect in having humor in persuasive messages is that humor must be relevant to the content in order not to be disruptive. जिस तरह से मैंने vivid images के बारे में कहा था, यहाँ भी वही बात सही है कि sometime the message by humor element can be so funny that people are more likely to remember the funny element rather than the real message. तो वो जो है वो उसके साथ एक तो congruent होना चाहिए मैसेज के साथ humor, and then it should not exceed a certain limit. And studies have also pointed out that if you are injecting humor in your speeches, it would have a central route, direct route. It would have a more pleasant effect on people immediately. The next point is one-sided versus two-sided messages. It has been shown that messages can be more credible if they are acknowledging opposing arguments also. There are two ways to convince other people about your point of view. One is that you are presenting arguments about your story, and the other is that you are giving arguments what your opponent can give after certain time. So studies have shown that it is very important that we should keep into mind that we should give two-sided messages. The advantage of that kind of effect is that people think that you are a fair-minded and objective person because you are presenting your opponent's viewpoint also. Hovland and his colleagues conducted one study in 1949. Hovland et al. Were working actually in US Army Information and Education Department at their time, and they wanted to convince US Army that after the completion of World War II with Nazi Germany, the war may be continued with Japanese people for another 2 years. And they wanted to see whether one-sided or two-sided messages are more effective. So their studies showed that if people are having some agreeability toward that particular message before the persuasion was done, then one-sided and two-sided appeals are equally effective. But if people are having opposition to that point, that it means that initially they are opposing that particular advertisement or that particular persuasion, then two-sided appeals are more effective. तो इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि if people do not agree with you in the beginning, then it is more effective if you use two-sided messages. इसका मतलब क्या निकलता है कि usually people who are having different opinion from yours, their attitude is difficult to change. And then it is important that you present your arguments as well as your opponent's point of view. The later studies which were conducted on the same issue, they showed that it is not only important that people who are opposing your information or opposing your persuasion in the beginning, they will be affected by two-sided messages. But apart from that, if they have more knowledge about that particular issue, or if they will be exposed to more information by the opposing group in future, then it is recommended that two-sided messages are used. Another benefit which two-sided messages are having on attitude is attitude inoculation. What is attitude inoculation? Attitude inoculation is a weak version of an opposing argument which can help stimulate defenses against a future opposing argument. इसका मतलब क्या है कि जब आप कोई आर्गुमेंट देते हैं तो पहले आप अपना पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू पेश करते हैं. सो विच एवर इंफॉर्मेशन यू प्रोवाइड फर्स्ट इज हैविंग द लीड. तो लगता यह है कि ये सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट इंफॉर्मेशन है, एंड देन यू टेल एंड डिस्क्राइब द व्यू पॉइंट्स आर पॉइंट्स ऑफ योर ऑपोजिशन. सो दे अपीयर एज अ वीक मैसेज because the person is prepared beforehand for them, and if in future your enemy or your opponent presents the same kind of information to people, it would have an inoculation effect because people would have built defenses against them. तो उन पर उनका असर नहीं होगा, उनके कोई persuasion जो है वो उन पर नहीं होगी. McGuire said in 1999 that immunizing somebody against change isn't always very healthy for the reason that people do have to be open to outside influences. So if people have to be open to outside influences, then it is better than the person who is doing propaganda or who is doing some advertisement, he himself uses it. The next point is, does repetition increase persuasive power? आपको याद होगा एक थ्योरी हमने पहले पढ़ी थी, mere exposure effect. If you just have exposure of some nonsense words, some meaningful words, some phrases, then you develop a positive attitude toward them. इसकी हमने different studies जो थी वो भी हमने उनका भी मुताला किया था. So that mere exposure effect states that if you are exposed to some kind of stimulus, then you will develop some positive attitude toward that. So the question is, if you repeat your advertisement, if you repeat your message again and again, would it have some positive effect? So the answer is yes, it would have some persuasive effect. It will be able to change the attitude of people. But the thing is that repetition has the opposite effect on the stimuli that are initially perceived as negative. And that research was concluded by Cacioppo and Patty in 1989. That if you have some negative impression of something, that if that is persuaded to you, that then it would have a negative effect on the person if it is repeated again and again. As compared to that, if you have neutral or positive attitude towards some element of some object, then repetition would have a good effect. मुझे याद है एक टीवी में इश्तिहार आता है और I do not have an agreeable good opinion about that advertisement. The reason is that it has not been presented well. जो शख्स एडवर्टिजमेंट में है मुझे वो भी ठीक नहीं लगता, जो उसका कहने का अंदाज है मुझे वो भी मुनासिब नहीं लगता. और मैं आपको इश्तिहार तो नहीं बताती, लेकिन ये किसी मोटरसाइकिल की एडवर्टिजमेंट है और वो ये कहता है कि आपने अभी तक मोटरसाइकिल नहीं ली, मैंने तो ले ली है. और वो बार बार उसकी रेपिटेशन जब भी कहीं होती है तो आई गेट रियली अनॉयड. तो इट सीम्स वेरी बोरिंग टू मी और मेरी जो है वो उस मोटरसाइकिल की तरफ जो है वो एक नेगेटिव एटीट्यूड जो है वो डेवलप होता जा रहा है. इसके बरक्स एक इश्तिहार है किसी ब्यूटी सोप के बारे में, एंड दे हैव यूज्ड 5 सेलिब्रिटीज for that campaign. Because that advertisement has been made very beautifully and the girls who have been presented in that advertisement, they leave a good effect on me, so I have a positive attitude already for that advertisement. और एक प्रोग्राम मैं देख रही थी उसमें उसको कोई मेरा ख्याल है 50 दफ़ा रिपीट किया, but even then it did not have a bad effect on me. So repetition, although it did not increase my favorable attitude about that particular beauty soap, लेकिन उससे ये हुआ कि मुझे उसका कुछ availability heuristic हो गया है. So I am able to remember that beauty soap more often as compared to other soaps. तो ये भी इसका एक तरह का फायदा है. So what do we conclude? That repetition increases liking only up to a point. उसके बाद जो है वो repetition becomes very boring. And one study has pointed out by Pratkenes and Aronson in 1992 that repetition with variation can overcome wear out effect. कि अगर आप repetition जो है वो कोई change के साथ करें, you give a novel element in different repeating of that stimuli, then it could have a good effect. मुझे एक और इश्तिहार याद आ रहा है जिसमें एक शैम्पू जो है उसकी 5 तरह की टाइप्स को एक डिफरेंट तरीके से बताया गया है. और अगर आप 5-10 दफ़ा वो इश्तिहार सुनते हैं या देखते हैं तो उसमें हर दफ़ा जो है वो डिफरेंट उसी ब्रांड का जो शैम्पू है उसकी जो डिफरेंट टाइप है उसके खसाइस को बयान किया गया है. सो इन दैट केस रेपिटेशन डज नॉट हैव अ नेगेटिव इफेक्ट ऑन द पर्सन. So this was all about message variable, that how the message shall be communicated and what are the important variables in the communication of a particular message to the audience. And now we will study the third important factor in attitude change, and that is audience variable. Who is the audience whom you are communicating to? आप किसके लिए मैसेज जो है वो डिस्प्ले कर रहे हैं? There are 3 things important as far as audience is concerned. One is mood of the audience, second is involvement of the audience, and the third is individual difference. अब इनका बारी बारी मुताला करते हैं. First of all, we will study how does mood of audience affects attitude change or persuasion of a message. Studies have shown that if people are in a good mood, if they are in a pleasant mood, then this is more likely that they will be able to change their attitude. And the attitude change advertisement or persuasion will be more effective for them. One study was conducted by Janice et al. In 1965, and they showed that if people are eating something in a snack bar, then it is more likely that their attitude will change if advertisement is provided to them, as compared to those people who are although sitting in the snack bar, but they are not eating anything. Similarly, studies have shown that if people are listening music in restaurants or at some other place, then it is more likely that they will be more persuaded by the message that is communicated. And that study was conducted by Milliman in 1986. So what are the possible explanations that if you present your persuasion, if you present your advertisement with music and when the people are happy, then how would have a different impact if the condition is different from that? One explanation is classical conditioning, that if you are in a happy mood, then your happiness becomes associated with that particular message that is communicated to you. and the other is cognitive response approach. Cognitive response approach is also known as the feeling as information explanation. Cognitive response indicates that if people are in a happy mood, then they are more likely to take whatever information comes to them. So they are more ready to take it cognitively. This approach suggests that people in positive mood are less likely to engage in extensive processing of the presenting arguments, and that finding was shown by Ruder and Bless in 2003. So if you are in a good mood, then you will not be processing the message that has been communicated to you. As compared to that, if people are in a bad mood, in a negative mood, that they will develop a habit to process the information that you are showing to them. One study which was conducted by Bohner et al. In 1992 that showed that negative mood signals something is wrong with the environment, which triggers greater processing to find out what is wrong. So when people are in a happy mood, they think that everything is fine with them and their environment. As compared to that, people who are in a negative mood, they think in their cognitions, they think that something is wrong perhaps with the environment. And because they want to find out what is wrong with the environment, they would be more likely to process the information that is communicating to them. Another study has shown that generally happy people use peripheral route rather than the central route. As compared to that, unhappy people use the central route. When you are using the central route, then you are looking at the persuasive message and advertisement directly, and what has been presented to you has a direct impact on you. As compared to that, जो लोग खुश होते हैं उन पर पेरिफेरल राउट भी असरअंदाज हो जाता है. और मैंने आपको पहले बताया था कि पेरिफेरल राउट से मुराद ये है कि whatever elements which are not directly related with the advertisement, for example attractiveness of the person and length of that advertisement, हालांकि length जो है it does not determine actually the effectiveness of that or the credibility of that particular message, लेकिन peripheral routes के तहत जो है वो ये चीज़ें जो हैं वो भी influence करने में कामयाब हो जाती हैं. So what do we conclude? That happy people are more susceptible to weak cues like attractiveness, which is communicated through peripheral cues. Another factor which is also important in attitude change is involvement. How much involved the person is whom you are communicating the message. There are two kinds of involvement that the person would feel for that particular persuasive message. One is issue involvement and the other is impression relevant involvement. In the issue involvement, the person is personally involved in that particular message, and the outcome of argument has important consequences for the self. When the person is personally involved in that particular persuasion, then the persuasion takes a central route. It has a direct effect and impact on the person. As far as impression relevant involvement is concerned, the person is more concerned that how much he will be scrutinized by others and what will be the public image of him if he decides or if he is influenced by a particular issue. तो उसके नज़दीक ज़्यादा इम्पॉर्टेंट ये होता है कि अगर वो एक चीज़ जो है वो उसको पसंद करता है, नापसंद करता है या एक ख़ास किस्म के एटीट्यूड का इजहार करता है, तो उससे उसका पब्लिक इम्पैक्ट क्या होता है. फॉर एग्ज़ाम्पल, अगर कोई चीज़ मुझे अच्छी लगती है और मैं अपनी फ्रेंड को बताती हूँ बाज़ार में कि ये कितनी खूबसूरत चीज़ है और वो ये कहती है कि ये इसमें क्या अच्छी चीज़ है. इफ़ आई एम मोर कंसर्न्ड by the scrutiny of other people or by the criticism of my friend, then I will say, नहीं ऐसे ही देखने में अच्छी लग रही थी, इतनी खास तो नहीं है. So I will readily change my attitude. So it depends that what kind of involvement you are having about that particular object. And then there are individual differences as far as audience variable is concerned. And individual variables are the last one that we are going to study in audience variables. One individual difference that could exist is need for cognition. The need for cognition indicates the degree to which someone prefers to engage in effortful thought, and some people are high in need for cognition and some people are low in need for cognition. When people are high in need for cognition, then that persuasion takes a direct and central route, because these people are having a desire for cognitive challenges and they want to engage in effortful thought. And when they want to engage in effortful thought, then they would be more inclined to read and to take what is written or what has been pointed out in that particular persuasive message. Then the second factor as far as individual differences are concerned is age. Two theories have been presented to point out the effect of age on persuasive messages. One is impressionable years that has been presented by Krosnick and Elwin in 1989, and the other one is lifespan hypothesis, which has been presented by Visser and Krosnick in 1998. In impressionable years, the theory points out that people who are in younger years, for example in adolescence, they are more likely to be affected by the persuasive messages. So it is more likely that they would change their attitude as a consequence of that persuasive message. और आपने ये शायद बात सुनी होगी कि you can't teach an old dog some tricks or more tricks. इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि usually लोग believe ये करते हैं कि it is difficult to teach new things to older people. As compared to that, young people are more likely, more susceptible to attitude change. And what is the reason for that? The thing is that younger people are exposed perhaps for the first time to political and social issues. And when they are exposed to some issues for the first time, or maybe not the first time, तो फिर भी उनके लिए exposure जो है वो काफ़ी चीज़ों का नया होता है. And they are developing attitude about different things in their external world first time or second time. And they are exposed to many elements of their environment freshly. तो उसका नतीजा ये होता है they are more likely to be affected by what has been presented to them. लेकिन इसके बरक्स जो है वो दूसरी स्टडी जो 1998 में प्रेजेंट की गई by Visser and Krosnick, it maintains that it is not only the younger years but older years are also easily affected by the persuasive message. Krosnick and Visser conducted this study after, you can see, 9 years, और उन्होंने इस स्टडी में they used more sophisticated methodology and they used more advanced statistical procedures. And they studied 8,500, in fact more than 8,500 people, and they conducted 6 surveys to know about the effect of age on the acceptance of persuasive message. And they found out that younger as well as older people are more inclined to change their attitude as a consequence of persuasive messages. What is the reason for that? They pointed out that younger and older people have more role transitions in their life, and as they are having more role transitions, they are more susceptible to persuasive messages. As compared to that, people who are from early adulthood to before old age, आप ये कह सकते हैं कि 50s और 60s तक, these people have relatively more strong attitudes. And as you may remember, that the strength of attitude is determined by the information and knowledge you are having about that particular issue. And those people who have entered in adulthood until the age of 50, they have the strongest attitude about some issues. And when people have strong issues, strong attitudes, then they are more resistant to change. And this then starts declining gradually until the age of 65, and then people are more susceptible to attitude change. अब एक टेबल आपको दिखाती हूँ जिसमें सेंट्रल और पेरिफेरल राउट्स का कंपैरिजन किया हुआ है. The routes to persuasion could be central or peripheral, and they would have different impact on the strength of attitude, as well as they are more likely to occur under different situations. As you can see that the central route is determined by careful scrutiny of the avoidable information to determine its merits. So in central route क्या होता है? The person is more concerned and more carefully observe the available information and looks at the pros and cons of that particular argument that has been presented to him. And it is most likely to occur when message is personally relevant, it has high need for cognition, and the person is in a neutral or negative mood, and the communicator speaks at normal rate. So जो central route है, it is more effective when the person is in a negative mood, क्योंकि फिर उसका direct influence वो लेता है, जबकि peripheral route जो है वो happy mood में ज़्यादा effective रहता है. and the person is ready for effortful thought, need for cognition, and the person is also having a personal involvement with the message. And as far as the strength of attitude is concerned, the message which is conveyed through central route, it will be strong, it will be resistant to counter arguments, and it will be predictive of behavior. So it means there will be strong consistency between attitude and behavior. As far as the other route, which is peripheral route, is concerned, peripheral route actually is concerned with relying on incidental cues and simple rule of thumb like attractiveness of the source or length of the advertisement. तो पेरिफेरल राउट में ज़्यादातर हम इस चीज़ से कंसर्न होते हैं जो भी बाज़ाहर प्रेजेंट किया जा रहा है. इफ द सोर्स इज़ वेरी अट्रैक्टिव वी आर लाइकली टू बी अफेक्टेड बाय दैट, या फिर उसकी लेंथ ज़्यादा है. And if the message is conveyed through peripheral route, then it is most likely to occur when message is irrelevant, the person is low in need for cognition, the person is having a relatively positive mood, and the communicator speaks rapidly. Central route के लिए ज़रूरी है कि जो शख्स है वो एक नॉर्मल रेट पर बोले, who is the source, क्योंकि उसके लिए ज़रूरी है कि you would have a cognitive processing of what has been communicated to you. And as far as strength of attitudes is concerned, the message which is conveyed through peripheral route is weak, susceptible to counter arguments, is not predictive of behavior. So now let's review today's lecture. We have discussed message and audience variables in the persuasion of a message. As far as message variable is concerned, we discussed a few factors which are important. One of them was facts versus vivid images, and we found out that factual information is more persuasive than the vivid information. Moreover, the factual information must be from a credible source. But studies have also shown that if factual information is provided with vivid information, then both of them could have a long-lasting impact. But at the same time, we saw that the message should be very relevant to the image if you are using vivid images, because it is very possible that people will forget about the content and message and they will just remember the vivid image. Then we talk about fear and humorous elements, and we found out that governments, organizations, advertisement companies and many people use this fear element very frequently. And the purpose of using this fear element is that they want to induce fear in people, and they want to tell them that if they are having problem, that perhaps we could be the savior, or if you could use that particular product or that particular person, that you could be saved from that particular fear. Then we talked about humor as a very important element in the persuasion of message, and we found out when humor is presented in an argument, then the person who is presenting that persuasive message becomes more likable. And then we also talked about the use of one-sided versus two-sided arguments, and we found out that studies have shown that two-sided messages are more effective because people think that the source is a fair-minded person and the person is being objective also. And we also found out that two-sided information is not only better if the person is having opposite point of view from you, but is also effective if the person is having more information about that particular object. Then we talked about repetition, and we found out that mere exposure of an object can produce positive feelings towards that particular thing. But at the same time, it should be kept in mind that repetition should not exceed a certain limit. And then finally, we talked about audience variables. And audience variable, we talked about mood effect. If the person is in a pleasant mood, then he is more likely to be affected and taking that message in a positive way. And then if the person is personally involved, then it is more likely that he will be persuaded by that particular message. And then finally, we looked at individual differences. And as far as individual differences are concerned, we talked about two issues today. One is need for cognition, that how much effortful you are at the moment when the message is conveyed to you. And the second is age variable. And we found out that it is not only younger years that are more prone to attitude change, but older people can also change their attitude relatively easily as compared to adult people. So this is all about today's lecture. In the next lecture, we will be talking about prejudice and discrimination, and we will be discussing what is the difference between prejudice, discrimination and stereotypes, and what are the factors which increase intergroup intolerance. Until then, Allah Hafiz.